Hello and welcome to this episode of the Game Plan podcast by College Baseball Advisors. I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. On the Game Plan, we talk all things as relates to mostly college coaches' journeys, themselves playing baseball, getting recruited, playing in college, and of course their coaching journey, and then how they run their programs now from a recruiting development and just culture perspective. Um, I coach college baseball myself for 30 years, and now I'm a college baseball recruiting advisor. For more information about what I do, please visit my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. In addition, I've created a roadmap, just a pretty manageable, quick, free, easy download meant for parents that have kids playing high school baseball and that are overwhelmed and stressed with the recruiting process. So to get that free download, just go to go.collegebaseballadvisor.com/roadmap, enter your email and it'll get sent to your inbox. Again, go.collegebaseballadvisor.com/roadmap. On today's episode, we had Rucker Taylor, head baseball coach at Davidson College, and we covered his journey growing up in Alabama, his recruiting process, getting to go to Vanderbilt, kind of in the era when Corbin was just coming in, taking over and making Vanderbilt the program we know it today. We talked about how he played at the same time as Ryan Klosterman, the head baseball coach at Bryant College, how they stay in touch, how they play each other every season. In fact, by the time this podcast out, it's probably 10 days away from the kickoff of the season where Bryant goes in to play Davidson. We then talked about his start with getting coaching at Samford University. He was there 6 years before he was hired by Coach Cook at Davidson. He talked about how horribly Coach Cook had an accident right after he was hired. And while he's now, doing well today, how that kind of thrust Rucker into really running this program in the time that coach was out. He then took over in 2018 as the head coach at Davidson College, where he's been there since. So we talked, of course, about Davidson, about how the portal is really not a big thing in the world at Davidson, although since they don't have grad school, occasionally their players still have eligibility when they graduate. And he talks about how he helps his players go on to use their extra years and through connections, which actually led us to talk about how coaches do talk in the recruiting process, where if someone he finds out as a recruit possibly for Davidson maybe isn't good enough on the field, he might help one of his friends coaching at a Division III school with high academics. And really, it's true. When I was a coach at Sacred Heart, if I had a kid that could not get accepted into the university, is a really good player, I would certainly pass his name on. So again, it's kind of a smaller network of college coaches that talk to each other. So I think you'll find this podcast really informative. So without further delay, here is my conversation with Rucker Taylor, head baseball coach at Davidson College. All right, Rucker, so happy to have you on, and I really appreciate you coming on with the season right around the corner, as we were just talking about before we hit record. You got Bryant coming up, but you also got some possible weather coming in this weekend. So first and foremost, thank you for spending a little time with me.
Absolutely, man. It's that time of the year, everybody's excited, so looking forward to it.
So I if when I do my research, there's a lot of stuff that I can get, and sometimes things are wrong. So I always like to start off with where people were from. Were you born and raised in Alabama?
I was South Alabama. My mom's still down there. Great area to grow up. Huge college sports area. Was fortunate enough to grow up, 20 minutes from Gulf Shores, which is the beach, and didn't really think about it at the time. Just kind of, that's what you're accustomed to. But grew up in the small town of Foley. A lot of good people down there, and a huge sports area, and remains that way today. And area is growing a lot. A lot of good athletes come from that area, from Mobile, Alabama. A lot of good baseball, a lot of good college football, and certainly professional football players as well come out of there.
I can't be the first person to ask you. You don't have the typical Alabama drawl. Is
Yeah.
that is that your area, or is that something
Yeah,
you
no,
never had or
it's
lost? Or
trust me, the area I grew up is it's very much so. Yeah, I got to college, and just meeting people from all over, and people, man, you don't sound like you're from Alabama, and I think that's a good thing. I'm not sure.
right?
So I don't know. My dad's from South Georgia, my mom's from South Alabama, and I don't know. So yeah, I don't maybe have it as strong as some others, and there's certainly times I think it comes out, but maybe not your stereotypical Southern accent, I guess.
Yeah, so I went to Gettysburg College and I'm from Long Island, and I would get, you don't sound like a true Long
Yeah,
Islander,
yeah,
so I guess we have that in common. But
yeah.
besides obviously playing baseball, did you play formally or informally other sports growing up?
Yeah, growing up, basketball, soccer, football, tried to impress a young lady one time, ran a cross country meet or two. That was a dumb decision. They even ran a little track at some point, but no, did all those and grad school at Stanford University. I was there, played a little bit of flag football too, which was a different experience, but very enjoyable. So yeah, did kind of the big three, I guess, in football, baseball, basketball, and really enjoyed it. So I had good experiences with that, and was able to play with friends, and I even played American Legion ball, which in the state of North Carolina where I am now is still very popular and a really good
Which is great.
quality of baseball, but something now you see less and less of. But so yeah, it was a lot of good memories from sports, a lot of good family memories tied around athletic events. It's a very big part of my life growing up.
Was at what point, I'm going to say in high school, did you realize either baseball is A, your best or your passion and you want to play in college?
Man, probably even before high school, I knew I wanted to, right? University of South Alabama was 45 minutes an hour away, so they had some really good teams with Coach Kitchell back then. So grew up watching those games. College baseball really went on TV back then. You
Right.
get Omaha, and even Omaha, it wasn't every game. For me, it was the Mark Kotsay, the Pat Burrell, the JD Drews of the world that really kind of first caught your eye. Houston Street, as I got a little bit older, those games would pop up on CBS, and you might get the championship game, or you might get the championship game on ESPN2, and it's Stanford versus whoever, and the scores 21-18 or whatever, and they're changing the bats the next year. So
Yeah, right.
yeah. So definitely, it was a tougher product to see. We'd go to some Auburn University games where both my parents went, maybe once a year with our youth baseball team. We'd travel up there and see that. We'd go to minor league games back then too, right? So we had the Mobile Bay Bears that no longer exist. We took I think a 10 or 11-year-old team trip to the Birmingham Barons in the 90s, and that happened to be some guy named Michael Jordan was trying it in right field, and I got to shake Michael Jordan's hand, which is pretty cool. It just seemed like his hand was like this big, right?
Right.
So some cool memories with that for sure. But yeah, for me, it was always enjoyed baseball. My dad played junior college baseball, was always kind of one of the assistant coaches growing up around his tax season schedule, and he was able to do it, which was awesome. So just it's kind of a family deal, right? Family, friends, and not the biggest area in the world growing up where I'm from. So it was one of the better kids, and had the opportunity to do it after high school, and very fortunate for that.
So a couple of things there. First of all, you said South Alabama. Mark Calvi is a good friend of mine,
Yeah, yeah.
coach there now, who's been on this podcast. And then listen, I think in my lifetime, Michael Jordan is the greatest athlete who ever lived, right? But
Yeah,
and probably if he was a lifelong baseball player, he probably would have been exceptionally good. But it
yeah,
does say a lot about the sport of baseball that the best all-time basketball player came in over and he fit the mix, but boy,
yeah.
he wasn't dominant, and that just
Yeah.
goes to show you how hard the sport is, right?
Yeah, it is. I think that you watch some of these incredible athletes from all different professional sports, Olympic type athletes that they throw out those first pitches.
Yeah.
Man, it's and we're not even trying to talk about hit 95 with sink and run and these days. So it's a challenging sport. But yeah, to your point, I mean Michael Jordan, the competitive piece, and obviously the ESPN feature they did on him recently, I think got a lot of play and opened
Yeah.
up the younger generation's eyes to what he was. But being fortunate enough to kind of see him play, and you remember, just the look on his face at times, and how he would absolutely take over games, and then you hear the stories about how competitive he was in practice, or how competitive he is on the golf course, and heck, he's got a racing facility 10 minutes down the road from us here, and I think it really bleeds over in all walks of life for him. So yeah, to your point, he certainly was maybe not the best player in Double A that for that period, but you give him a full runway to do it, and my money says he probably makes it work somehow.
And you brought up something that's really important. I think we're lucky in this day and age to have these things, about Tom Brady and about Michael
Yeah.
Jordan and these things. Like, I'm not a basketball guy. I'm maybe one of the worst players of all time, but you watch that and you realize what translates is just competitiveness and
Yeah.
never let down. So regardless of what sport, and I think, listen, the we'll maybe talk about this later. The current generation of kids, that's probably what they need. They're getting the exit velo and the plyos and the strength training. They probably, and many of them have it. I'm sure your best players are mentally tough, but that's something that you see in Michael Jordan. He was physically gifted, but he was mentally elite for sure.
Yeah, no, no. That's I think people are more open to talking about, what their process looks like, what their struggles are, how they're trying to overcome things. I think when I was growing up, you maybe get a Harry Dwarfman book, the mental ABCs of hitting, but that's
Yep.
so few and far between. And now, obviously, the resources through social media are way more prevalent than years ago. So our kids have more access to it, and that's
Yep.
probably a good thing. It's also can be a challenge, right? Like if there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down. But yeah, I think I wasn't a very good player in college, certainly. I was, if I'd been mentally tougher, if I was able to compete better and, separate failure from success, I would have been a better player. I think I'm a better person because of those failures, but I think I could have been a better player with a little bit more mental toughness. And it's really an academic place like Davidson. Like our kids are challenged in the classroom, right? Like we're an Ivy League admissions process. They're going to class, right? Like it's not you're not just checking a box of clicking a button to go online. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of schools are doing that.
Yep.
Our kids that leave here for grad school, I mean, it's a different experience, and some of that's good, some of that's different. But I think for our guys, they feel very prepared, and we typically have one guy a year that's going to med school off our team, one guy a year that's going into law school. So I think they're getting into those very challenging graduate programs, and they're prepared to succeed. And maybe not with med school guys, but certainly law school guys. Hey, I've got way more time than I'm used to. Like this is awesome. I'm able to do some things outside of the classroom and the baseball field. So I think we're very fortunate to prepare them for that. And I do think there's places that you can be challenged. You do develop some mental toughness, maybe indirectly. But it's certainly something with the resources that are available that a lot of people are taking advantage of.
Yeah, and I definitely want to we'll unpack a lot of the stuff at Davidson because I remember when I kind of first started to transition into this recruiting thing I'm doing now. I remember actually I forget text or emailing with you, and you told me something that actually happened to one of my kids. You go, sometimes kids get rejected from here, but we'll get into an Ivy,
Yeah.
right? I remember you telling me that, and it actually happened with one of the kids. So
Yeah.
Davidson's an elite place, and I want to talk about that. What I first want to talk about though is what do you remember about your recruiting process that got you to Vandy?
Man, so like I said, I wasn't very good, right? So I would go to a my high school coach, Tony David, who's now the head coach at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. Him and I are close, and he started coaching our high school program Bayside, I think in eighth or ninth grade, and I guess eighth grade, right? So we're trying to do a varsity program with a bunch of eighth and ninth graders, and we're terrible. We're getting beat up, but him and I spent a lot of time together, and kind of made a list going into senior year, schools that were of interest, schools that might be a possibility. We kind of whittled it down, right? Like I wasn't good enough to go to LSU or Mississippi State, and certainly would love to over Auburn or somewhere like that. At the time, Vanderbilt was certainly not what it is today, and that was a school that really made sense, right? Academically oriented, probably not quite good enough to be there, but maybe things fell the right way. There and Wake Forest were probably two that made the most sense for me at that time. Wake was, I think, was top five in the country, and kind of similar success they're having right now, right? They're in a really good spot. Went to camps at both those places, had opportunities at both after it. It was, hey man, here's kind of a preferred walk on. You're guaranteed to be on the team. You get a locker and all that good stuff, but kind of got to earn it from there. Vanderbilt camp probably performed a little bit better than I actually was, and felt great about the opportunity there. Derek Johnson, who's now the Reds,
Yes,
big
I know Derek
fan.
well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like he was, like, I loved him, right? And
Awesome.
Coach Kittrell at South Alabama was probably the best offer I had at the time, and thought the world of Coach Kittrell. But for whatever reason, just getting a little bit away from home, the football experience at Vanderbilt, South Alabama had football right there. Had some friends that were up there from high school that enjoyed it. Went up there for camp, go back up for an official visit in the spring, right? So spring of senior year, and they were playing Arkansas and actually got rained out. But got to meet the guys, and it just felt right, right? Like prayed about a little bit, and just felt like that was what it's supposed to be. So Coach Corbin gets hired that summer, and really for relative to the history of Vanderbilt baseball, it's just completely different, right? Just completely flipped the script. Kept DJ, kept Mike Holder, who talk with occasionally still, and brought in Eric Bakich, and we played Clemson last year, right? So we've had our shortstop for 4 years, Jacob Hindeleiter, went as a grad transfer to Clemson, and we helped facilitate that, and had a great experience. So a lot of good ties there throughout baseball. But for me, that was just a wonderful experience. A lot of my teammates are coaching in professional baseball. Ryan Klosterman, you mentioned Brian earlier.
Yep.
Probably my best friend in college baseball is we play them every year. Like literally, we play them every year, and our kids probably get tired of seeing Bryant, but I don't get tired of seeing Closty, so we
Right,
make
right.
that work. So yeah, just Vanderbilt was a great experience for me. Played a little bit my freshman year, didn't play it all my sophomore year. Played a little bit as a junior, didn't play a lot as a senior, right? So just kind of a world where, um, again, if I was a little bit mentally tougher, probably would have gotten the field a touch more, but also I wasn't the best player and they're going to play the best guys. And that certainly wasn't me for a lot of that time period. But I wouldn't trade a lot about that experience. Love the teammates, love the coaches, what they did for us as people. My own way, try to, I'm not trying to mimic or recreate the Vanderbilt experience I had here for our guys at Davidson, but want them to be challenged where when they leave here as people, they're gonna be better prepared for the next 40, 60, 80 years, whatever it may be for them.
Two things from that. Number one is interesting to have this conversation this many years later, where if you want to say the last 20 years or so, the best college baseball program over that time is probably Vanderbilt, right? Overall,
Mhm.
or one of.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what's interesting is that really Corbin did that, right? Like it's in a way that Signetti has turned Indiana, and
yeah,
of course, different circumstances with NIL and all that. But clearly, the importance of a coach. But maybe a question you probably have thought about. I'm not sure you've been asked, but if you were at Vanderbilt in your role and it was now portal days, would Rucker Taylor have stayed because you're so happy with everything? Do you think you would have possibly considered leaving to play?
yeah. So I think if I'd had the opportunity to stay, I would have stayed, right? And you know how schools do it. Maybe hey, they go, hey man, you're never gonna play.
Right,
You,
right,
you
right.
need to look elsewhere,
Yeah,
right?
we're not
So
telling you to leave, but if
yeah,
you do
yeah,
want to
yeah.
play, it's not going to
Yeah,
happen here,
I
right? Yeah,
think I think if I had the opportunity to stay, I would have stayed, right? The only thing that maybe changes that is your teammates, the guys you really care about, are they leaving, right?
right.
That was I think we had three seniors my senior year, myself, Matt Bushman, who got to the big leagues, is now I think he just got hired as the Rockies bullpen coach. Has been in professional baseball working for a while. He again made it to the big leagues with the Diamondbacks. And a guy named Brian Hernandez, who actually transferred in from somewhere else, was my roommate my junior year, right? So and he got drafted and got to AAA at one point, and he's actually probably going to bring his youngest son to one of our camps this summer, which would be really,
Cool.
really cool. So if my junior senior, if it was a bunch of guys I didn't know and they weren't the same kind of people and teammates, then maybe, but it's also for me it'd be pretty hard to walk away from a Vanderbilt degree, when it's 9 months away from you and you've put a lot into, to get that piece of paper, right? So probably not. If I was a better player and somebody offers you, some of these college quarterbacks are allegedly getting, then we'll see. But no, I in an alternate universe, maybe, but reality now, I don't think so.
Okay. The other question then about that time, did you know during your college career that you wanted to coach?
Possibly, right? I think going into college is maybe law school was kind of the thought process. Um, Enjoyed some classes with some adjunct professors that were also, had real world jobs, right? That maybe was kind of thinking the consulting thing about halfway through and just kept coming back to, enjoy spending time in the field. I was the guy in high school that was recording the home run derby on VHS cassette and, breaking down why are some of these guys seeing the ball so far? And, the answer back then in the 90s was steroids, right? Like,
Right, right,
it's not, yeah, but I always enjoyed that piece of the puzzle. I sat on the bench a lot too, right, when we were playing. So you have to kind of watch how other teams were doing things, watch how other teams take BP, started having those conversations with the coaching staff really summer going into my senior year. Myself and Bushman stayed. We worked out with the football team, so I was able to work some of the camps there. Kind of saw that side of it. Went and worked a camp at Sanford with Tony David, and then Casey Dones, the head coach at the time, and really, really enjoyed it. Like that was probably hey, I really enjoyed working a camp at a different place that's a little bit outside my comfort zone. Maybe I should give this thing a shot. So that was probably going into my senior summer when it really started kind of to click. And, the coaches at Vandy were great about, maybe giving me a little bit more insight, talking through some things with me. And that was really helpful. Blake Allen was our volunteer assistant at the time. Blake's at Indiana. Him and I spent a lot of time together. Mike Calitri, who was the bench coach of the Phillies, I think got promoted within the Phillies to some other position. I think still on the field. He was our ops guy my senior year. Cliff Godwin, who's had a ton of success at East Carolina most recently, was our ops guy my junior year. So there's just a lot of really good baseball coaches floating around. It'd be kind of silly not for me to take some of that in. So I think that was just a great environment to if you want to be a coach to get into it.
Was, if I have it right, was the first coaching job at Sanford?
It was, and I was like old school grad assistant. So I had grad school actually paid for. Man, I hope this was legal, but like through baseball scholarship. I mean, so I was on part 11.7 there. So did that and was washing uniforms. I mean, I was doing the groundwork. I mean, I was washing uniforms for other teams and taking them back to hotels at 2, 3 in the morning, and it was humbling, right? Like you're SEC player and all this stuff, and all of a sudden you're washing a uniform for maybe a school you've never even heard of, and you're having to haggle with their second assistant or volunteer assistant to actually get paid the money you agreed upon, and
I know
that's
that deal.
that's
Yep.
frustrating, right? Like, hey,
Yep.
it's $50 a night, and they're trying to give you 40, and hey, man,
Right.
that's frustrating, right? So, and I certainly could have handled it better. I was, man, I should be doing this or doing that, and Casey and Tony and Mick Philbinder, Mick has done some stuff with the Pirates the last few years. They were awesome to a really kid that thought he had it figured out and didn't, and they were great to me and really good people. All three of those guys were genuinely good people and did a lot to take care of me and very appreciative for that.
You had mentioned earlier, and I don't know if this timeline worked out. Did you say that your high school coach eventually went to coach at Sanford? Was that the
Yeah, so
case? Yeah.
correct. So Tony Davis was my high school coach at Bayside Academy down in Daphne, Alabama, where my mom's a third grade teacher. And the year after I graduated, Tony went to be the volunteer assistant at South Alabama for Coach Kittrell.
Yep.
And then Casey got hired at Samford. I think it was '04, '05, roughly. And I don't think he really knew Tony, interviewed him. Tony got the job as the recruiting guy there. And then Casey brought in Mick Philbinder, who he had known just through the Birmingham area. So, yeah, that's kind of my tie that got me into Samford was Tony, and very appreciative for that.
And you were there how many years at Sanford?
Six total. So
Six
I
total.
was there, and I was looking back, I said, wow, doing that as a grad assistant volunteer, and I was really fortunate that Casey knew a ton of people in the Birmingham area. I was able to do a ton of lessons. I mean, there's times I was doing 20, 21 lessons a week, so you're looking at 21, 22 hours of lessons. And I mean, Casey was great. Even back then, if there's somebody I could fit into at one time, if we had an hour between our BP and the visitors BP and I had everything done that I needed to do, I'd sneak a lesson in literally during the other team's BP. And Casey was great about it and had some, friends that probably allowed me to pay a little bit less rent than what was fair at the time and was able to make it work for that period. So I was really appreciative of it. And yeah, I do think looking back, when you're looking at a 10 or 11-year-old, it's not very athletic and you've got to get them better somehow, right? To get that, at 40, $50 at the end of that hour, you're really going to dive into, teaching the swing, teaching offensive baseball and, building confidence. And I think for me as a young coach, that was a really good training ground.
Totally.
That back cage when the lights are not quite getting there, you can't turn the lights on because it's the school stuff, not yours. It made me a better coach. It really did. So I think there's a lot of learning that can go on from that. Obviously, you want to try to get the kids better. There's some really good friends to this day. Still a couple of people I talk with, I was giving lessons to, 18, 19 years ago and seeing those kids grow up has been pretty cool.
It's also because I've been at that exact situation, coaching and doing stuff on the side. It's a young man's thing because now you're doing all the team stuff and you're doing your own stuff. It's almost like you have two jobs. And back in those days, we didn't have, the whoops and the Oura rings and the
Yeah.
Fitbits to check our steps. But I bet we were doing a lot of steps back in the day
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
those
we were,
things.
we were, and the other guys on staff were great. Like they had kind of been in similar situations, and Casey did a ton of field work. I mean, he'd water the field 4 or 5 times a day, and they certainly allowed me to. It wasn't a thing where you're working for somebody that hey, you got to be in the office at 6 a.m. You got to leave at 8 p.m. Wherever you outside, that's great, but and we started running summer tournaments there, so that was a source of money. It's crazy looking back. We were charging $50 a game, right, and that was it. Jan Weisberg, who's now at Eastern Kentucky University. Jan was at Birmingham Southern at the time, and when I left Sanford to come to Davidson, Jan started running he put on their board the Rucker Taylor Memorial Tournament, one of their last tournament of the year. So Jay would send me pictures of that. He said, finally, somebody asked him, "Hey, who is that guy?" He's an old buddy. The guy's like, "He passed away." It's like, he's not with us anymore. Not with us anymore. So you kind of get stories like that, and definitely some good memories and some long days. And there's plenty of nights leaving the field at 1 a.m. after a Saturday set of games, and first pitch Sundays at 8 a.m. And I slept in the office many times,
Right.
many times, and better because of it, truly
Yeah.
so.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe you found a player or two possibly from those games
First,
too, right?
first year doing it. First year doing it. It was game 5 of the day. We had a tournament, and then a guy named Harry Porter out of Mississippi was running his all-star group through. And they played a Legion team out of Alabama. Sixth inning and seventh inning rolls around, top of the seventh. Alabama team's home team. Their second baseman comes in to close, and I'm up at the top of the stands. We didn't have a press box time. It's just an old school like
Yep.
10 over. So it's Alabama. It's hot, right? So I'm like, this looks pretty good. It's got the radar gun up, 89. All right, So go down, go look closer, 91. All right, so kid comes out, throws 10 pitches, strikes out the side, 91 to 93 with an absolute hammer. So I don't have a roster, I've got the lineup card.
Right.
It says Kimbrel on it. Okay. So I walk down the dugout. I'm not, I'm 21, so I don't know what I'm doing. So I walk up, go, hey man, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but do you got interest in playing here at some point? He goes, coach, I appreciate it. I'm going back to junior JUCO this year so I can stay draft eligible, blah, blah, blah. So it's Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah.
So he ends up committing to Alabama, signs out of the junior college. But yeah, I felt pretty good. My first evaluation was Craig Kimbrell. And I really wanted that guy. So didn't work out, but I think it worked out for him.
Yeah, it worked out for him. Yeah. Funny coming in from second base too. And
Yeah, played 6 innings at second and rolls out. And I think the backstory was he maybe had an arm injury that year and started throwing off one knee and just, the arm strength developed and, obviously an athletic guy, but, we're talking about a borderline, Hall of Famer. It's pretty cool to see him and one of my first days doing it.
yeah, at least you were on the right guy, coach,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
certainly missed on some, but, the obvious ones, I feel like I got those.
Um, so then you get the opportunity to come over to Davidson. Um, how did that come about? Was that obviously you had coached 6 years at Sanford's probably time to
Yeah.
move to a different place, but how did that come about?
So we were in the Southern Conference at the time, both schools were. Coach Cook, who was the longtime head coach here, awesome person. We had some common friends, I think, that had recommended him to me, just given the academic ties, the conference ties. I think what he was looking for kind of fit the bill. So we ended up talking a couple times on the phone. We were in the conference tournament at Sanford. We ended up winning the SoCon that year for the first time in school history. So that was really cool, right? Really
Right.
cool. Coach Cook was wonderful about, giving me kind of the space to, to do the scouting reports and do everything I was doing to help get us ready for that. We ended up going to a regional in Tallahassee. We leave we lost in the championship game to Florida State.
Mm.
Drive back. We had team camp starting the day after we got back. So do team camp Tuesday through Thursday. Tony was in charge of all of our camps at Sanford at that time, I believe still is. So, he had the brunt of the work, but I was certainly doing my part. I might have left an hour or two early to hop on a plane, flew up here, interviewed, thought it went really well, get off the plane back in Birmingham 2 days later. And actually had a phone call from an SEC head coach at the time, SEC assistant. Hey, we've got a volunteer spot opening, want to gauge your interest. So, looking back, had a couple of options at that time. It was, hey, go be the recruiting coordinator, go work at Davidson, get the responsibility. You've got to prove you can recruit to continue up the path here. So, looking back now, 20 years later, in this day and age, people say, hey, probably go take the SEC third spot, right? Like that's probably going to pay more. You're going to get in that circle. But for me back then, it was certainly, hey, go take the responsibility, go run the offense, go be the recruiting guy. And at the time, our other assistant spot was a part-time position, and our volunteer spot was kind of hit or miss. There'd be guys. We'd have a guy some years, but other years we didn't. So this
Right.
was a wonderful experience. I don't second guess it. The other opportunity in the SEC would have been great. Probably would have, a little bit different path. Also, there's a world you're not even in coaching right now, depending on how some things shake. So Would
Great
not
point.
change any of that. Coach Cook was wonderful. I think the environment here at the academic type student fits me, and Cookie was great. He was actually in a horrific car accident like 3 months after I was here. So he missed.
Wow.
He was out of the office really basically until our spring rolled around. But he was hit by a drunk driver coming back on an in-home visit. And is really lucky to be alive. Had some really severe injuries. He's doing great now. Plays golf. Is mobile. Is all those good things. But it was touch and go for a little bit. So I had truly first year on the job, first couple of months. I don't know if they ever said, "Hey, you're the interim," but hey, you're in charge. Ask questions as needed. Go get them. So it's
Right.
okay. So that was a terrible way to get that experience, but a lot of learning I was able to do, and a lot of mistakes. But had a great group of kids here that wanted to learn and were maybe wanting to have a little bit more success than what we were having at the time, and just some talented kids too, right? Some talented kids that we showed some belief in, and it had some good years early on as well.
So your first year there was what year?
2013.
Okay, so 2013. And then so it was about 5 years. Uh I assume you got the associate title. You took over as
Mhm.
head coach in 18, correct?
18 or not? Yeah, fall of 18, I think. First spring was 19, I think is what I can't, I'm so bad with numbers. Yeah, I think spring of 19 was first year. Then COVID just throws everything into a
Of
blender, right? So
course.
I think
Of
it was
course.
one full season, COVID blender, surviving the year after COVID, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the COVID always comes up on these things, and I do everything I can just to
yeah,
forget that period. It was
circus.
yeah, it was totally crazy. When you first got the head coaching job there, it sounds like, and obviously through the car accident, but it sounds like you probably were doing a lot of responsibilities already before you got the head coaching job. Was it a big transition to get your first head coaching job on the field or off the field, or did you feel I've done this long enough, I'm pretty ready for this?
Yeah, Coach Cook was great. So even, from day one, hey, here's what you're doing. I'm not going to micromanage. I'm not going to second guess. Go do it, right? Hired you for a reason. And just, really empowering as a young coach to have that freedom. A lot of mistakes, right? A lot of mistakes, but he knew our heart was in the right place. I think my second or third year hired a guy from Duke named Ryan Munger who played there. So Ryan's the recruiting coordinator at Notre Dame now. And we kind of grew through this together, right? So we were, neither one of us was married at the time, a lot of common beliefs, and wanted to make our name for ourselves in the coaching world, and certainly help Davidson get it where we thought it could go. So I think Ryan and I were together for 4 years when I was the head coach, and probably three, four, five as assistants.
Mm,
Roughly a decade together, and talk a ton. We try to get grad school guys to him the best we can, and if there's maybe a high school guy that they're not going to do anything with, he certainly gives us names. So I think we did a lot together, and Coach Cook was great about that. And I think we had each other to bounce some things off of. You always want to do that before you ask the boss, right? Hey, what do you think? Is this
right.
really dumb or just dumb, right? So, we had some good players too, man. We were able to, get some kids that wanted to get better and got better, and valued the educational piece, and how we treated them. So we had some great times here, and hired my first year's head coach hired Parker Bangs from Presbyterian College. He went to Rice after here at North Florida now, and just had three younger guys that were together for 4 years as the kind of the top three guys, and it's a little bit unique at a mid-major these days, unfortunately. I think the continuity, we didn't have guys, we didn't have fifth years. It wasn't grad school then, you're right. So we didn't have these, 23, 24-year-olds we're playing against. When we roll out our freshmen and sophomores, we're playing against other, at least sophomores and juniors sometimes. So we had some really good years, a lot of fun, and it was an incredible place to learn kind of what you're doing. And, ultimately made the transition when I took over as head coach, Ryan bumped up to recruiting coordinator. It made the transition about as easy as it can be, I think. And the kids are a huge part of that. Coach Cook was wonderful. He became our administrator. So it really wasn't a huge transition. Our administration was great about that, and it was really, really easy.
So, most people watching this, listening to this, obviously should know Davidson, but can you just talk about the university just itself, you know, just before we even dive into the baseball a little further?
Yeah, so the easy it's Steph Curry's alma mater, right? So he's Charlotte based, as is the college. We're 25 minutes above the city, just north of Charlotte. We have a lake campus, which is part of Lake Norman. So it's faculty, student, staff, alumni access only. My wife loves going out there with our little son. There's a beach. I mean, it's everything you can think of, almost like a little vacation area. So
Mm,
we're in a beautiful area. We're 4 hours from Charleston and Wilmington, and then the beach. We're an hour and a half from Boone in the mountains. We've got a lot of good things all near and dear to us. College itself is roughly 2,000 students, so we're one of the smaller
yeah.
ones in the country. We're in the Atlantic 10 in all sports other than wrestling, football, and swimming, I believe. Swimming or excuse me, wrestling's in the Southern Conference, football's in the Pioneer League. That's an incredibly spread out football conference. But for us,
Yeah.
we're the southernmost school in the A10. We're predominantly East Coast and a few Midwest schools, so that's been a little more travel for us. We get to go to some great big cities, your Philadelphias, your New Yorks, your St. Louis's. We get to go see some cool places along those lines. So a little more travel for us than the SoCon was, but certainly fits our profile for it's a basketball driven league. There's a lot of really good basketball historically in the conference. So we are theoretically one of the best academic schools in really the world, I guess. We're consistently rated as one of the top liberal arts schools in the country, top return on investment as far as students when they leave here. Small classroom sizes, like you said, you're challenged academically when you're here. You're not just checking a box. Hey, I'm a student athlete. I'm not here to play school. Like our guys they have to play school here, right? They really do. And we have typically one or two kids a year that are leaving here to go to med school, one-ish a year that's leaving here to go to law school. Accounting's been a semi-popular in the last few years. It is very rare that we've got a senior that's not sure what they're doing upon graduation. We've been fortunate to have a couple of junior drafts in recent years. Had one that got released this past year. Unfortunately, he was right back, finished up his degree, and is working in the finance role right now. So it's a place of a lot of really motivated individuals. It's really impressive. We get the high school transcripts, the high school resumes, what these guys have done outside of baseball. Some of our student managers in the past and currently are some of the most well-rounded kids I've ever seen. What they're doing in the classroom, helping us the field is just an impressive type of kid. It really is.
Could be an open-ended, difficult or easy question, but how do you describe program culture or, key things in the way that you lead the program? Is there anything that you hold near and dear to the way you're running your program?
Yeah, you hope that the kids are better here. They're better than when they got here, right? And that's really broad. But you hope there's human development at the center of it. And obviously, we want them to get better at baseball. We want to win baseball games, but we want them to be well-rounded when they do leave. They understand time management. They understand the mental toughness piece. They understand that life isn't always the Instagram highlight reel. Like there's real challenges to that. I think this school gives that academically. Like I said, you've got to go to class, right?
Yeah.
You've got to do group projects. You've got to pull your weight, or you're not going to be in a good place. And obviously, the game of baseball itself. I mean, it's all the cliches, the game of failure. If you're 300, you're in the Hall of Fame. But it's a challenge, right? To go to class, to do the things you're supposed to do in the weight room, and then come out here and maybe not be in the lineup every day,
Mm.
or have a UCL and not be able to play the game that, is a big part of the reason you came here, right? So I think there's our hope as coaches as they leave here as better people. Obviously, the toughness piece is something that our kids have talked about in the past. Hey, we're at kind of a white collar school, right? Like it's not cheap to go here. We're high end academic. We're generally thought of as kind of nerds, right? We want to flip that script a little bit. Can we kind of be that tough, scrappy team that other teams don't want to play? And that's, it sounds a little bit cliche. We're not the rip your shirt off and go yell and scream and so we try to start fights with the opposing team. But we talked with our kids about, defending what is ours, right? So if somebody else starts something, we can certainly respond. But at the same token, you don't want to be the hairy high school dugout. And we talk a lot about when we play really good programs, there's not a word from either side, right? We played Clemson last year and they're competitive, they're into it. Duke last year with Coach Pollard, like they're really competitive, they're really into it, but there's not a war towards us.
Right, right.
NC State with those guys, really good team last year, like talented. They didn't say a word to us, right? And then sometimes you play some of these other programs that maybe trying to turn something around, or it's just so transient, transactional, and you're looking in the dugout going, how as a coach do you not just allow that, how do you how do you live with yourself having to deal with that every day?
Right,
So
right.
we're and by no means are we perfect, right? By no means are we perfect. And our kids make mistakes, and I've kicked kids out of dugouts. I've certainly done those things. But I think there's an understanding here of we're going to play the game, the way the game should be respected. We're going to respect the opponent. But ultimately, yeah, you should have fun, right? Tell the kids this all the time. If you're not having fun at the field in total, right? Not every single second of every single day, right? You're 0 for 5, and we're 25 games in the year. You've gotten 5 at bats, you've punched 4 times, or you've pitched twice halfway through the year, and you've got a 48 ERA, then it's probably not fun, right? But it should be in total, it should be fun. It should be the 4 best years of your life, 3 best years, 5 best, whatever it is, or heck, with some of these court rulings now, the 7 best years of your life, right? Like, good Lord.
Yeah.
So we want it to be fun, we want it to be challenging, and ultimately, if not always in the moment, when the guys are 4 years down the road, 14 years down the road, 40 years down the road, you want these to be the relationships. You want them. Yeah, I love getting the invites to weddings. Yeah, I do, right? Like that's typically don't get to go to a ton of them, especially having a young son right now, and missed about 4 this fall because of practice. Was able to get to one that was semi-local, and that's what's really cool and rewarding. I think as a coach to for those guys want you to stay involved and kind of update you, and even the low lights too, right? Hey, I'm going through something tough, like hey, my dad's got this going on. That means probably even more to me that you can try to help in some way at some point down the road.
Yeah, no question. I mean, a good coach like you, you're coaching life through baseball, right? You're coaching people through baseball. You want to win always, but
Yeah.
you do realize it's a bigger picture. Let's talk a couple of things recruiting. Again, you mentioned it a little bit. I'm assuming in your everyday life, getting kids from the portal is probably almost never happens. Very rare for
Correct.
you.
Correct.
Yeah,
We've
okay.
never gotten a Division I transfer in the portal. We had a guy a few years ago that sat out a year. We had a Division III transfer from Birmingham Southern simply because the school shut down. Our admissions people, human common sense, right?
Right, right,
Good
right.
little humane touch, and they had 3 students that applied well after our typical transfer deadlines, and one happened to play baseball. And we've always recruited the lower possible number from the NCAA, lowest possible number, and that is, that number's fluctuated so much in the past years. So we had roster space, so it worked out, and he actually played a little bit for us last year. He's on the team again this year. So it is a really rare bird. We did about one junior college guy a year, simply because we know the college knows, hey, this is a student that's going to be leaving. That timeline fits our admissions much better. So it's a world that unfortunately we have to play against a lot of teams that are, just junior, senior, and grad transfer. Selfishly from a baseball perspective, I'd love to have that option.
Yep.
With us having grad school, we just don't. And the college as a whole does not take many transfers as a whole, and certainly we're not going to be able to fill that up with 9 baseball guys, right? Just doesn't work that way.
So I think you said it, and so you don't have grad school, correct?
We do not have grad
You
school.
do,
That is
right.
correct.
So anytime you have a guy that redshirted for whatever reason has eligibility, got injured, wants to play after, that's a guy with some talent. You're going to help try to foster
Yeah.
that and get him to a place, right?
So we just had a guy commit to a great academic school that fits exactly what he wants to do. I think medically after here, had a relationship with that coach. He visited over Thanksgiving, then committed over the Christmas break. We got another guy that was taking visits over the Christmas break, and we're trying to help navigate him for a little bit. And he's got some good questions and coming off an injury, and there's some things that make sense for him to do, and there's some things that don't make sense for him to do. We've got a two-way football guy that actually just committed to a school for football, but also wants to do the baseball
Mm,
piece, and we're certainly trying to help facilitate that. So it's a little bit different world, and our guys are funny, right? I never give them my opinion unless they ask for it. Some will, some won't. There's been some guys I think have made perfect decisions. There's been some guys I've kind of scratched my head and go, I don't think I would have made that one. Majority of our guys end up in situations that they like, and maybe 25% it was just a mistake, right? They maybe believe the wrong sales pitch, and we're kind of telling them, hey, you need to talk to your teammates that have been recruited by the same people and kind of see what it is or isn't. And to a man, with maybe one or two exceptions, we've had some guys that have said, hey, I would have stayed at Davidson for a fifth year had that existed, right? I
Right,
really
right.
have. But there's a couple guys that have been at some really good Power Four programs that have felt that way. So um, certainly not all our guys feel that way. And for me, hey, go get a grad degree, go see a different part of the country, go get a different experience. There's nothing wrong with that. But we one guy that's at UVA that was going to go to Duke, follow Coach Paul to UVA, and he came back and was visiting a couple of times over the fall. We have a guy at Florida State this year, and Putt, especially Florida State, I think it's gonna be right in the middle of their lineup. And I'm texting those guys, probably annoying them in the fall. Hey, what should we be doing differently? What have you liked? What can we
Right,
take away? And that's kind of one thing I tell all those guys. Hey, when you leave, like I'm going to bug you to see
right.
what we should be doing, and they get it. And UVA had a camp this weekend, and our guy there was actually, hey, this kid mentioned Davidson, thought he was a good player. Here's what he did, and I really liked him as a kid. I think he fits. So that piece is cool too. That those guys want to see us, have success, and everybody left here on the right way.
Correct me if I'm wrong on Pollard. Isn't he an alum?
He is. He
Yeah,
is. He
yeah.
is an alum. Was an assistant coach here. Brett Beretti at
Peretti too.
Columbia
Yep.
is an alum and assistant. Mick Aoki at Richmond, also in the same boat, and then Pete Hughes at Kansas State.
All four went to Davidson.
All four of them.
Wow.
I think there's some pretty significant overlap with Mick and Pete and Chris and Brett were together. I think they actually coached together as well. Chris
Yeah,
and
I
Brett.
believe so. Yeah, yes.
We were supposed to play Brett, and Brett, I hope you listened. We were supposed to play him this year, and he canceled on us. So that's on him. But I roomed with him a ton during this summer, and same to try to help our grad guys get to those places. Maybe not to Richmond with Mick, just so we don't have to be in the league with them,
Right, right, right,
but
right.
with UVA or Duke and now UVA, and I guess yeah, so it's good relationships and good people, and then all those guys want us to have success. Other than Mick, maybe when we play them, and then they're great. But heck, Mick is this big of a Davidson proponent as anybody I've ever met. Loves it. Will DeBose is our equipment manager currently. Will is like 43rd, 44th year here. Was here when Mick was here, and Mick goes out of his way, as does Chris and Brett. All those guys that when we play them will always get to smile on his face, love seeing them, and those guys are huge Davidson fans and have always been great to me and respectful and donate and all that great stuff. It's really appreciated.
You mentioned something that I don't think your average high school kid or parent realizes that not that coaches, wake up each day and go, how can I find players for other programs? But the
Mhm.
reality is, like you said, if there's somebody at Notre Dame who's maybe not a fit, but they think it's a fit at Davidson, and I'm sure the same way if you had a kid that maybe was a really good student and but maybe just not at your level baseball wise, and you happen to talk to say an Emory coach or like people do converse with
Oh
each
Lord,
other.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 yeah. That's a we're kind of maybe in the middle of that in some fashion. We are able to give out some recommendations. We're able to take some recommendations, and I think especially the schools that know us a little bit, that goes a long way. And there's a school that has a commitment from one of our seniors, and their coach just told him, hey, point blank, hey man, if it's any kid coming from your place and you recommend them, we'll take them sight unseen. I was like,
Mm,
well, I appreciate it, but
right.
let's at least let him get on campus and make sure you guys are good with it. So that's yeah, I think that says a lot about the School of Davidson admissions process. It says a lot about the alumni that we have, that they're able to kind of create that that idea amongst other coaches, and that really a lot goes back to Coach Cook too, right? Like other schools, didn't dislike playing against Coach Cook because he was going to treat them professionally, and the dugout wasn't going to be Bush League, and we just try to continue that.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, even what I'm doing now with helping kids with recruiting, I would never say to anyone, you got to take this kid because I don't know enough about their own program, who else
Yeah,
is in their
yeah,
recruiting class, personalities. I am always confident to say, like, I'll talk to your assistant, Joe Sheridan, and say, listen,
yeah,
I got a kid academically and athletically. He's in your ballpark. Dude,
Yeah.
just check them out. Let me know what you think. If it's a no, that's fine. No's are good. I don't dislike hearing a no. I
Yeah.
feel bad for many of the high school kids who just don't have any idea where they stand and they don't get feedback, and it's really difficult for them to land in the right place. But
Yeah.
all right, last question here. Just coming off the Mohegan Sun World Baseball Coaches Convention up here in New England, an awesome event. They sponsored this podcast. I've actually gotten a lot of the coaches from that event to come on this podcast. So this is kind of a Mohegan Sun World Baseball Coaches Convention segment, if you will.
Hmm.
So I'm going to ask you two questions on that note. Someone is a end of their college career thinking about coaching. Someone is a young coach, maybe the way you were when you first started at Sanford. Any advice to young coaches that want to get into college baseball coaching, are in it? Any advice from your experience that you'd want to tell those guys?
Yeah, so the first advice I got was from a combination of Coach Corbin, Coach Backich, Coach Johnson, right? So I am just graduated more or less, season's over, hanging out there working camps that summer. And, hey, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, because this person's gonna get this job and I'm gonna do that. And we're in Coach Corbin's office, and with those three, and it's just naive, stupid, arrogant of me. And the just so it was, Rucker, you can't predict anything. All you can do is do the best job where you're at, right? You do that. Don't worry about anything else. You do the best job where you're at, and the rest will take care of whatever that may be, right? And yeah, I think for three guys that are, as you said, Vanderbilt, arguably at worst one of the top programs in college baseball the last 20 years. And there are some things that were set up for that program to get better. But if you said 25 years ago that in 2026 Vanderbilt's maybe the best college baseball program in the last 2 decades, no, nobody's buying that, right? They're just not. So I mean, I think Coach Corbin, and we talked at that time that he could have coached the football team, and we think they would have had success. He could have coached
Great
the
point.
basketball team, they would have had success. He could go and coach in professional baseball, and I think have success. And obviously, Coach Bakich, what he did to bring in the energy, the players that he was a huge part of. There's a lot of really good people there. So for them to kind of say, hey, you just do the best job where you can, where you're at, the rest will take care of itself. I think that's always kind of resonated. I think also for me, I think with younger coaches, I say that as like I'm getting old.
You got
Uh,
some gray in there, coach.
no, trust me. I don't like it. I don't have much up here, but this, I was
It really
walking,
makes you look distinguished.
man, I was walking through Walgreens. My son loves going to Walgreens and Weiss half a block from the house and walking around. And man, I saw that Just for Men product. I went, I've had a gap. The boys on the team probably wouldn't know. Maybe. I got way less than Closty does, and he'll
Yeah.
prove that in about 3 weeks.
Yes, you will.
Um, so but just it just for those guys, say do the best job you can. But I think there's some guys now that I talked with my buddies that are front office guys in professional baseball that there's a lot of 23, 24-year-olds that want the corner office right away. And sometimes you're fortunate enough to get that. Sometimes you are the best and most qualified person, and you can be in that role. I think there's a lot of learning that can occur when you're not in that position. You can get a feel for things. You can be that guy that's giving the lessons to the 11-year-old when it's getting dark. You got to make them better so they come back the next week, so you get that $50, right? So I think there can be a lot be learned with whatever station you're currently at. And I think there's a lot of younger guys that maybe want to bypass that.
Hmm.
The Eric Backett stories where he was an assistant at Vandy for a couple of years, and then as head coach, like those are rare. But he also, he wasn't making what he's making now as the assistant at Vandy. It was just a different time, and it wasn't
Right.
a great job when he took it. Right, he took a leap of faith with Corbs and obviously DJ, and they got that thing rolling. So I think be where your feet are, do the best job you can there. And we've got hired our first ever former player, Parker Nolan, who's a young guy, first college baseball job, and he's a Davidson alum, so he gets this place incredibly energetic, incredibly positive. He works his butt off, right? Like he absolutely works his butt off. He wants to grow, he wants feedback, and you don't always get that with
Hmm.
coaches. So that's been really appreciative. So, be a sponge. Sometimes it's even learning what you wouldn't do. I wouldn't do it this way. There's nothing wrong with that. So
Fair.
be where your feet are, work as hard as you can, do the best job you can. And, if it worked for Tim Corbin and Derek Johnson and Eric Backes, it probably works for most people, would be my guess.
And then just kind of to follow up, there's a sophomore in high school, watching this, listening. He's, into it. Possibly wants to play at Davidson or a similar school someday. Any one or two things that you think that kid he must be doing, whether it's academically, strength and conditioning, anything you could think of where you go, if you want to get here, this has to happen.
Yeah, you got to have the grades, right? And that's Davidson, that's Dartmouth, that's Denison, that's Dayton, that's Daytona State. Like you got to have whatever the minimums are. And in this new world of 34 scholarships, yeah, there are a few programs that are fully funded. There's a few.
Feel.
The majority is not, right? So if you can be an academic assassin, as our kids kind of like to joke about sometimes, if you can get academic money, that just opens up so many more doors, right? It really does. And even in this crazy world where maybe you're highly academic, you go somewhere that's not academic to start, but you realize as a sophomore, junior in college, hey, maybe I'm not a pro player. Maybe you can transfer to a high academic place to finish out your career and get a great degree that maybe gives you some advantages down the road, maybe, right? So I think that piece, as cliche as it is, it has to start there. If you're a C student and that's the best you can do, that's great. Be a C student, that's fine. If you're an A student and you should be an A student, then be an A student, right? Challenge yourself there because it does open up other avenues. It just does, period. Secondly, yeah, the strength conditioning piece, the game's older, right? We saw that with the Indiana football this year. They're old, like they are old, and we're seeing that in college baseball. Teams talked about that for years. Get old, stay old, right? Like that's not a new thing in college baseball. So the physical piece of that puzzle maybe is a touch easier for a pitcher, but for a position guy, man, you got to be a grown man to play.
I do.
You really do. So whatever that looks like for you, people talk about Ken Griffey Jr. didn't lift weights, right? Hall of Famer. There's exceptions, right? But most of those guys, if it's not old school, high school bench deadlift squat, that's not a bad foundation at all. They're at least doing something to prepare themselves to play every day, right? Because we've had a junior college guy a couple of years ago. He said the day in and day out, it was just different. Like he was tired by the end of the year even after being in junior college for a couple of years. So preparing yourself every day for practice, preparing yourself every day to show up for a game, that's not easy. And then I think the biggest thing we talk about this at camp with our kids and high school camp, if you don't enjoy the game,
Mm,
why are you playing it, right? And it doesn't
yeah,
mean it's gonna be easy, doesn't mean it's always gonna be a win, doesn't mean it's always gonna have a good day. But ultimately, if you go like through a month period, you're like, man, I hate to go in the field every single day, or it's a 1 year or 2 year period, you're probably not playing for the right reasons. And nobody really cares ultimately, right? Like, oh, I played
it's a
in
great
college.
point.
It's great, right? I was miserable for 7 years to do it. Nobody cares, right? Talk about with our guys, right? Oh, I played professional baseball. It's a great conversation starter. It's a great to have on a resume. Your teammates really don't care when you come back for alumni weekend. Your employer doesn't care if that hasn't helped build your portfolio of what you can help that company with. Nobody really cares, right? Your high school Instagram profile might care. Hey, I'm the number 7 player in Georgia. That's great. What does that mean
Right,
5 years after that? It means nothing. It means nothing.
right.
It might mean a
Yeah,
lot in the moment, but if you don't enjoy it, why are you doing it? I'd have more, if a guy's miserable here, I would have more respect for them as a person. Hey, coach, like I'm miserable. I'm playing because my parent wanted to, my granddad wanted me to. I played this just to get in school. I don't think I want to play anymore. I would respect that kid more than anyone possible than the guy that just does because they feel like they have to. So, really long answer to your question. Play because you're enjoying it, not because you feel like you have to. Right, because
yeah,
this game's tough. If you're not enjoying it, it's miserable. It's tough enough when you're enjoying it, right? So
yeah.
play because you have an enjoyment for it. Hey, if you've been part of your life for 4, 5, 8, 10, 12 years, every college in the country is looking for bullpen catchers, for student managers, even for kind of practice players, right? Hey, maybe you can do something like that, still be involved, still be part of a team, but not have that mental wear and tear, that physical wear and tear that maybe you just don't want to do. So play because you enjoy it, not because you feel like you have to. And that makes all of it so much more fun and more enjoyable. You'll be a better player because of it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. In terms of the academic piece, I always tell kids the if you want to visualize that you found a great school that they like you like them, but then you send the transcript in and they say this
Yeah.
is not going to work. That's not where you want to be, right? So the better your grades, the more options you have, and then the more academic money you can get for it.
Exactly.
And on the other side of it, I wrote something down as you were talking. I had this kid some years back that I was like kind of mentoring, and he said to me, like, I don't think I want to do baseball anymore. I'm really into being in the fire department. What do you think? And I go,
Yeah.
dude, I go, you found
Great.
something you love. That's great. And he goes, thank you, because everyone else in my life told me I was stupid to give up baseball. And I go, life's too, you could get hit by a bus. Like,
Yeah.
you got to do what you love to do. So
Yeah.
great advice on that.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
We had a guy, we're coming back from Philadelphia 10 years ago. Andrew Asher was a Georgetown Prep, Washington, D.C., was involved with our entrepreneurial department camp,
Yep.
we have a building. It's all for it's awesome. And he's like, hey coach, what do you think? We said, he's like, hey, I can graduate early and go all in, like all in on this. And I was like, is any reason not to? He's like, no. He's like, I think it's the right move. I just worry about giving up baseball. I go, okay, well, if you do this, you're all in. You're going to learn more this next year than you would through baseball, through class. So long story short, within the last year they've opened a brand new facility between here and downtown. He's on like the Forbes. He's on the Forbes top 30 under 30. Like he's got this just blossoming. He's on the front page of ESPN.com during COVID because they're drones. They're cleaning the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta. So
Mm,
he's just blossomed. He's hired a couple of former players. Does it happen if he plays his senior year? Maybe, maybe not. But he had some grant opportunities that weren't going to exist if he played.
right.
But he went all in, bet on himself, and it worked out, right? So we've got a success story like that, and he would have pitched some that year. Was he a big leaguer? No, but he could have been a solid college pitcher for us, no doubt. So I'm sure there's stories like that that don't work out. But to your point, with that guy who wants to be a firefighter, like good for him, right?
Yep.
Like he knows what he wants to do. Whether or not he goes to a four-year college, no idea. Doesn't matter in my mind, right? Like
Right.
he's found something
Exactly.
he's passionate about. Like I hope more people find stuff they're passionate about. They jump in with 2 feet, and I think the world's a better place when that happens.
Totally. Coach, you're the man. The Davidson program is lucky to have you. I can tell you're just awesome guy. Be great to play for. So thank you so much during the preseason. You got to get ready for Closty. So I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to join me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely enjoyed it.
You got it. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Game Plan Podcast. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Rucker Taylor, head baseball coach at Davidson College. Again, as a reminder, I've created a new PDF, a roadmap to the recruiting process, really meant for parents of high school baseball players. For those interested, you could go to go.collegebaseballadvisor.com/roadmap and enter your email, and that'll get sent directly to your inbox. So again, thank you so much for listening. We look forward to seeing you on our future episodes. We have some exciting talks coming up. Josh Heenan, founder, owner of Advanced Therapy and Performance, and then a special episode with 4 different coaches that run prep school baseball programs in the state of Connecticut to talk about that possible route for players. So again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.